You know, as someone who's probably played more Souls-likes than any other person on the planet, talking about them is tricky and often unfair to the developers. More than any other genre of game, Souls-likes invite a lot of comparison. It's in the name after all, Souls-like. And those comparisons usually aren't the most favorable or fair because they're put up against From Software and the Soulsborne games. Even if there isn't a direct comparison being made, a lot of people will compare them, at the very least, on a subconscious level. I think most people would consider FromSoft's games to be the pinnacle of the genre, the gold standard, and as such, it's usually not possible to go toe-to-toe against them. Like, you can make a great Souls-like, but at the end of the day, you're probably not really competing with Bloodborne or Elden Ring. They're in a different weight class, and that's okay. Then we got Lies of P. This game is very good. In fact, it's so good and so polished and so thoughtfully made that you can compare it directly to FromSoft and it still comes out looking pretty alright. In terms of quality, Lies of P is now up there in my personal rankings of Souls-likes where only a few games make it, like actual FromSoft games and Nioh 2, for example. If you want a Souls-like experience that's close to FromSoft, but not literally FromSoft, this is the closest I've seen a game get. I realize that's extremely high praise, but I love the 30 hours it took me to beat the game, and I think the footage mostly speaks for itself. The Korean-based developers at NeoWiz really did their homework of studying FromSoft when creating Lies of P. There's a secret sauce to these games in terms of design and presentation, and if even one thing is off, it can dramatically drag down the experience. Yet, despite that, NeoWiz pulled it off and fucking crushed it. I'm a little surprised by the overall response from critics though. They're generally positive, but I think they're still selling it short as just another decent Souls-like as opposed to the excellent game I believe it to be. We simply don't see Souls-likes on this level from companies other than FromSoft, and if you're a fan of the genre, this is one of the rare must-plays. There is a caveat though. This game can get incredibly difficult and has questionable difficulty spikes. Like, straight up, I think this game might be too hard for some people, even if they played other FromSoft games. And I want to make this warning crystal clear so as not to mislead people into buying a game that will make them miserable. I totally understand people who might quit this game less than halfway through. I really do. You do kind of have to get good, as the kids say, and be willing to fail a lot. And stuff like range builds or online co-op aren't options to make things easier against bosses that demand you learn every single attack. You need to meet this game on its own terms without expecting it to be just another Souls-like or making the wrong assumptions about what playstyle the game wants from you. In that sense, this game won't be for everyone, but if you're patient and willing to learn, I think you're going to have a good time. After lots of struggling, this game did eventually click for me, and the result is the praise you're seeing me give it now. The elevator pitch for Lies of P is Bloodborne meets Sekiro meets Twinkified Pinocchio in a game with FromSoft levels of production value and polish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think like it's an interesting game because they're very much just doing Bloodborne. Like, they're wearing their inspiration on their sleeves. They're not being shy about saying, and like there's animations that are like one-to-one with Bloodborne.
Really?
Yeah, almost.
But it's like, but that surely would piss you off on some level, right? And you're like, come on, man.
I don't think. I think I've been thinking about this a lot, and like, there's been a lot of Souls-likes, and I almost universally don't like them. I'm a weirdo about those
You're
games.
You're not a Thymesia guy?
Huh?
Not even
You're
the
not
Surge.
into Thymesia?
I don't like Thymesia. I don't like Surge. Even
Mortal
the
Shell.
ones that people like, I'm not super into. Like, I know people love Nioh. It's not for me. Like, Wolong is fine. It's not for me. And that's generally how people approach those Souls-like games. They take the foundation. They take the core principles or like the most important design ideas and then build something new around it. And I think that is the right way to go. But in doing that, most of those games miss so many important elements that aren't those things that are required to make that formula or that framework work really well. And so I feel like a lot of the big trap has been people trying to put their own new spin on that core idea in a lot of ways. This is a game where it is technically not doing much with it, but I personally look at it and I'm like, it's actually really difficult to emulate From's games and get it right, because you are essentially being like, we're gonna play in their court, and the natural inclination is then to make comparisons.
Yeah,
and when I do make the comparisons to Bloodborne, it's actually pretty favorable on Lies of P's side. Like, it, by sticking so close to what they do, they kind of evoke it, but then they have enough on top of it to make it its own.
Okay, so they do have that kind of like, it's not just
yes.
You know, we have Bloodborne at home kind of thing.
It's not definitely not Bloodborne at home.
Okay,
it doesn't have that. Like, there are. It's the thing that I'm most impressed by is the mechanical stuff is something that with enough time and like most developers can get it right. I think like the atmosphere and the feeling of being in those worlds is really tricky to get right, and they do it really, really well. That whole like, you know, the puppets are rampaging and like turning against people as being a kind of stand-in for, you know, like the Bloodborne stuff where diseases like ravaged everyone. It works really well. But then from a gameplay side, they have looked at that framework and been like, let's use what they had as a foundation. What else can we take from other games and our own ideas and put it in this game? They've got a bunch of mechanics from Sekiro. Like they have the arm is basically the you know, the Sekiro's arm. And the pacing is really, really well done. It has the kind of like attack back to recover your health thing part of it. Yeah, which is good. And then they've got their own little twists on it. Like the weapon crafting and like upgrading and customization system is really, really cool. It's like every item is a blade portion and a handle portion, and they each have individual abilities that they bestow on you, and you can like take the blade of one and the handle of another, put it together and create something new. And it's like really, really interesting, and it's their own thing, and I think that's where they kind of distinguish themselves. And then they've just got like the Pinocchio stuff is really cool. Like it's
I heard the loading screen is Pinocchio's nose.
Yes,
nose. It says now lying.
Now lying.
From Software birthed the Souls-like subgenre back in 2009 with Demon Souls. They've since released bangers like Sekiro and Bloodborne, which spun the formula in their own ways while maintaining that FromSoft DNA. They are both the authors and leaders of this subgenre, and while more great Souls-likes from other studios have come and gone, From Software have always felt unparalleled in their expertise. Along comes an unknown Korean studio called Round 8 Studio, developing a new Souls-like called Lies of P. What have they made before? Well, let's see. Bless Unleashed, a middling reboot to one of the most poorly received MMORPGs of all time, Bless Online. That is it. That is their entire portfolio. But then they come out with Lies of P, and holy moly, what a game. This is such a fascinating title, because despite this studio having zero experience with this genre, it so perfectly adapts and evolves the Souls-like formula in a way I have never seen before. I mean, if someone said to me that this was a FromSoft title, I would absolutely believe them. Lies of P is this really cool balance between the aggressive combat style of Bloodborne and the parry-focused dance of Sekiro that rewards your attentiveness and timing. The difficulty isn't crushing, at least for the first half of the game, but it's still full of thrilling, heart-pounding encounters that'll leave you breathless. Its rich world building and stunning visuals will transport you to an unforgiving world, but with sweet, well-paced moments of levity to reflect on what this lone hero is fighting for. Round 8 have found ways to provide their own spin on the genre as well. There's a weapon system that allows you to freely mix and match various blades and hilts to assemble your own creations. There's an added layer of customization through multiple skill trees and a great number of quality of life additions, alongside a charming story about the human condition with characters and themes directly inspired by the tale of Pinocchio. It's an amalgamation of ideas that come together to form an astonishingly good video game. I mean, the fact that this studio managed to pull this off is quite frankly extraordinary. Round 8 get it. They deeply understand the core tenets that define this genre and build on those foundations to produce something that stands on its own 2 feet. If you're a fan of Souls-likes or even have a passing interest, Lies of P is an experience you do not want to miss.
But then they also have like really cool little touches that I love, like when you're out in the world and you're collecting, is it called Ethos? Ergo, which is their version of like blood dregs or whatever. When you have enough to upgrade, the counter changes color to tell you, hey, you can upgrade now, which is something in Bloodborne and Dark Souls they never do. But it's just like a nice little thing that is like, oh, you guys thought about it a little more than just like upgrade, move along. I'm especially, I mean, like I'm sure Neo has made other games, but like, for me, this is the first game I have actually paid attention to of theirs, and in my mind, it's a debut game from them in a lot of ways, and it's incredibly strong. Like it's so good. There's like a market out there for people, like a studio, to come along and be like, oh, we're gonna do what they do, but like mix it up a bit and create their own little niche within that world. And they can be the Pepsi to the Coke, or whatever. There's no Souls-like game that I would wholeheartedly recommend and be like, that is a good one. If you want to play it, that's one that I will give the thumbs up to. And I've played
TAM seal of approval.
Yeah, it's got my seal of approval.
There you go.
Yeah.
Look at the camera and say that. Seal of approval.
Seal of approval.
There we go.
Can someone Photoshop like the Nintendo one.
Nintendo.
Nintendo, yeah.
There we go.
Nintendo seal of approval.
Yeah.
I'm invested in this world and its characters. There's so many levers for me to pull when it comes to buildcraft, and the combat has this great rhythm to it that really clicked for me, even as someone not super experienced with Souls-likes. Again, it just blew me away that this studio could come out of nowhere and deliver a game on this level of quality, standing toe-to-toe against a AAA studio who's been making this kind of game for over a decade. Maybe Elden Ring was your gateway drug and you want to scratch that itch but feel like your expectations are too high now. Or are you just someone looking for the next big Souls-like to sink your teeth into, since FromSoft got busy with Armored Core? For all the above, I can confidently say that Lies of P is the remedy for what ails you. And not in the we have Bloodborne at home way either. Like, while the inspirations are clear, this is a masterful adaptation of From Software's formula and an uncompromised experience. It looks great, runs well, plays well, no strings attached. Sorry, I had to put that pun in somewhere. Anyway, Round 8 Studio is definitely going on my watch list because I cannot wait to see what they produce next. Not much else to say really. Lies of P is just a damn good video game and well worth your time. I strongly recommend it.
Now, I want to take a minute to discuss the overall critical reception of this game, and why it's making me feel like I'm going just a little crazy. I want to preface this by saying I'm not trying to discredit anyone, these are all just video game opinions at the end of the day, and review scores don't do a good job of capturing any level of nuance, but it blows my mind that Lies of P is receiving about the same level of critical success and types of discussions as something like, for example, Mortal Shell, another Souls-like. I apologize to Mortal Shell, I'm not trying to single you out, and it was made by a smaller team, so it's a great accomplishment for what it is, but Mortal Shell is what I consider simply a decent Souls-like. It's fun, has some really cool ideas, but it also has some serious design issues and shoddy execution that make me hesitate in giving it a full recommendation. The truth of the matter is, Lies of P is worlds apart from something like Mortal Shell. I'm not satisfied with calling Lies of P just decent because I think the developers have achieved something truly special here. This is the real deal, and as one of the largest voices in the community, I feel compelled to make that as clear as I can. It really is on that level that I reserve for actual FromSoft games and stuff like Nioh 2. And while I can see some people not agreeing because they think it's too similar to FromSoft, or too difficult, or unfair, or something else, that doesn't change my personal feelings toward the game. It's just a really good game. So yeah, Lies of P is not reinventing the wheel. It's not earth-shatteringly new. It's probably not going to make you feel anything you haven't felt before. It's familiar, but it brings more than enough new ideas to the table in a package with FromSoft levels of polish and execution. It's got a gorgeous world and a compelling story, and it commits so hard to the idea of Bloodborne Pinocchio that you'll forget how silly the premise is as you get sucked into its world. Its crushing difficulty in ways it mixes up the genre will undoubtedly push some people away, but for those who stick it out and are willing to learn, you're going to be in for one of the best games the Souls-like genre has to offer. I know it's probably not on most people's schedules given how packed this year has been with incredible games, but this one is worth your time too. All I can say is I'm incredibly excited to see what these devs do next, and unlike Pinocchio, I'm not lying. Thanks for watching. I really hope I did this game justice, and I'll see you guys in the next one.